Hi everyone, my name's Anthony Cummins and welcome to this video. Now I'm doing this video in support of Book of the Samurai, which is here, and the reason is the Book of the Samurai is a medieval manual that's been translated into English, and it talks about warfare, samurai warfare. So what I want to do today is the ultimate war song. Now what I mean by this is I think it's a song where the lyrics provoke an understanding of war more than any other song. Now, because of copyright issues, I can't put the song on here. But what I'm going to do is link it down below to someone who has put it on YouTube, and then so you can listen to it. But I'm going to talk about the lyrics here. Now, I think you'll find it's quite fascinating, I think. So go and enjoy the song. It's only a minute or two long, and then come and have a listen to what I've got to say about the lyrics. Okay, the song is Kazi Street. Now this is by a band called Poison the Well. Now they have actually taken samples of a film from 1979 called Apocalypse Now. It should be quite known to most people. And it's Marlon Brando talking and doing a monologue as he talks about the horrors of warfare. Now I want to go through this in connection with samurai warfare. So let's start. Let's start. So he starts with, I have seen horrors that you have seen. Now for me that's amazing in the fact that I think, I have never been to war, but obviously I've spoke to a lot of military personnel, and a lot of people who have been to war come back and they really have a different outlook. They have seen the horrors of war. I used to teach sea cadets, and one of my sea cadets went off to war. He went off to Afghanistan and Iran. He went off to the Middle East in different places. And he remembers, like, when he left us, he was only, because we do sailing and things like that, he went to join the Royal Marines, and he came back about 24, and I think he had to be discharged in the end. Not because of what he'd seen, but because of a few things going on. His father had committed suicide, and him and his brother had both joined together and both seen some quite horrific things. And they said that the amazing thing is that the things you will do in warfare and the horrors they had seen. They'd shot, for example, women were dressed in bombs, clothed in bombs, going through checkpoints, and when they were inspecting the car they could see that they had so they just have to shoot them straight away. It was a case of like, poof, down they go before they've broke into a house or a compound and they're killing people. And one of the stories that he said to me, which was quite poignant, was he said he remembers watching his friend die, only a young lad, who'd been shot and was bleeding out, and he was saying with his last dying breaths, he was saying, don't let them take me, I don't want my head cut off, I don't want my head cut off, kill me now, kill me now. But he bled out and died anyway, and he was only a young British lad. So the point being here is that I think people forget in samurai times that they like to fantasize about the samurai, or they think the samurai are in some fantasy world, but it really was horrific. Samurai warfare was horrific as any warfare. In fact, more so, it was a headhunting medieval culture. You know, not only are you not going to get probably shot, you're going to be tracked down, trapped, and have your head sawn off. That being said though, lots of samurai did die from projectile weapons, or at least were, taken down by projectile weapons. Okay, the next one is, you have no right to call me a murderer. Absolutely correct. Warfare, samurai warfare, is murder. You set out to murder other people, but we never call people who go to war murderers. They are soldiers who kill for duty. So what is the difference between murder and being a soldier? So it says, you have no right to call me a murderer, but you do have the right to kill me, which I think is fantastic. It's a case of, you can't say I'm a murderer, even though I've done horrible, horrible things. You can't say that I'm a murderer because I'm doing it because my Lord says so. Say the Tokugawa Ieyasu has sent us out there. We're going to raid this town. We're going to besiege this town. We're going to track down these samurais. I am not a murderer. I am a soldier. I'm a warrior. But you can't call me a murderer, but you have the right to kill me. You can do that. Which is awesome. If you think about that mindset, he's going out. He knows he's not committing murder. He's committing, war. He's enacting war on someone else. But they have the right to enact war on him. So they have the right to kill each other, but not the right to call each other murderers, which I thought was a superb idea. The next line is, it is impossible for words to describe what is necessary to those who do not know what horror means. Now this is back to this gentleman again I've seen, and I've talked to many military people who've been to war and many people who've killed people, and they say it's all very well in the MMA ring or in the, the jiu-jitsu grappling or the swordsmanship art where you're in a nice dojo. All this is very nice, but when you're actually out there with blood, sweat, gore, it's difficult to describe back home because we're so used to violence. We're used to seeing it on television, we're used to seeing it in computer games, we're used to reading about violence, but there's a big difference between what's on the TV and actually being there killing people yourself. So he's saying it's impossible for words to describe what it's like, but when you've been there, people who've been there together can know what it's like. Now this next bit goes quite poetic. It says, horror has a face and you must make a friend of horror. So let me get a drink, chaps. So horror has a face. Obviously this is artistic license or poetic. It doesn't really have a face. But he's saying horror almost has an identity. Like we give death an identity, we also give, in the Christian or Judeo-Christian Bible, we have death is an entity, war is an entity, plague is an entity, famine is an entity, those horrible things. So he's saying here that horror itself, not necessarily war or plague, but the results of famine, war, plague has an identity. It's almost tangible. It's there. Horror is real. It's the reality of people doing horrible things to each other. So it does have a feeling that it is a real entity, exists outside of humans. Of course it doesn't. Of course, what we do in horror is, and what we do in murder and killing and warfare is horrible, but we do it as humans. What he's saying in the lyrics, or Marlon Brando here is saying, is that it feels like it is an entity, it's a third person. And you must make a friend with this third person. Horror has a face, and you must make a friend of horror. So basically, if you're not horror's friend, then you're its enemy or its adversary. You are not. You're on the receiving end of horror. If you are with it, it's a comrade. Horror is on your side. Once you engage with horror, once you become horror, you engage with it and you lose your humanity. And when your humanity is gone, like the samurai used to put masks on their face, they'd clothe themselves, they'd have, ritualistic, what's the word I'm looking for? They'd have ritualistic prayers on their armour, they'd have prayers inside them, magical equipment, and then they would mask themselves. This took away. We all know the taking away of identity takes away responsibility. So if when Nazi Germany have one uniform and they all do everything under the flag, it takes away the responsibility of what you are doing. So he's saying here is horror has a face, it has an identity, and you must make a friend of horror. Because when you're a friend of horror, you're not in its way. You are within its wake and you can do the horror. You must meld with horror, which, to be honest, starts... I'd love a friend of mine, Stephen Ojiri, to do a video on this, or anyone out there wants to do a response video, is when you get into horror, when you become part of it, are you responsible for what you do? Where is the responsibility? Where does responsibility end? So how do you think that a person interacts with horror? Once they go into that mindset of what are they? What do they become? Are they responsible for their actions? Of course, modern society says no, but what do you guys think? Then it says horror and moral terror are your friends. So again, this goes on from the last bit. It's saying that if you are not absolutely 100% behind bringing moral terror to your enemy. So you've seen the enemy, you're a samurai, you're on horseback, you're tracking the enemy across land, you've come across the enemy, or you're going into their compound, you have to bring moral terror. You've got banners flying, you've got demonic masks, you've got swords, you're giving war cries. It might be night time and there's fire coming up. You've set fire to the place. You've probably been killing people before. You've killed children, you've killed women, you've killed men, you've killed the old. You are the terror in the night. But equally, the samurai of that village or that town are the terror in your night. They bring moral terror to you. So horror and moral terror must become your friends, because if they are not, then they are enemies. They are truly enemies. So it says here, if they are not, they are enemies to be feared. Truly enemies. So that brings us to, if you do not join with horrificness, if you do not join with horror and moral terror, you won't be a fully functioning samurai. You won't really become the killing machine you are designed to be. So similarly, when the enemy comes against you, they are themselves enter into this state of moral terror. Not to be terrified, but to become moral terror. They try to personify moral terror and make it their friend and walk with their friend of moral terror, which protects them because they are giving it out. This is that if you are not a victim, you are prey. You can either be, prey or a victim. I know in the Navy they used to say there are two types of ship. There are submarines and prey and things like that. So this idea does go along different ways. So either you're a victim or you're coming for other people. You are a hawk being prey. Now this brings us on to, Natori talks about the dignity of flying birds, the way of flying birds. And he's saying that you should be a hawk while all around you are like sparrows. And you don't flutter about, you don't, when you're a samurai, you don't move about trying to find a kill. You target one, you move, you've got this eloquence, you've got this horror behind you, you've got this power behind you, and you kill. And he also says in this book, in Book of Samurai, he says, you must, so the other quote was from The True Path of the Ninja. This is from Book of Samurai. And he says, you must pick lower level people first, those who are not so powerful, and kill them and take their heads. And then when you have their heads, you can move on to somebody a little bit more powerful. And then when you've got them, you can build up the confidence until, he doesn't say this, but the idea is until you become terror itself, you become more powerful. And you're so imbued with confidence and power that you can take down anyone. So that's Poison the Well, that's Carsey Street, and they are quoting Apocalypse Now from 1979 by Francis Ford Coppola, and it's the words are spoken by Marlon Brando. So if you want to get the book's available. I'll put the links below. But of course, before that, go and have a look at the song itself and click the song and see what you think. Right guys, thank you very much. My name's Anthony. Subscribe if you want more videos like this, and I'll see you again soon.